who gives the go? Was this always the system? Meaning, if we catch someone illegal, like I can't go to Germany, I can't go to France, and then they catch me sneaking in, and then they're going to release me into France or release me back into Germany. Who is the individual that signs off, let them go?
Yeah, so it's a little bit deeper than that, but it comes down from directly out of the White House to the Secretary of Homeland Security, who establishes the policy of who we're going to catch and release. And then it comes down to capacity, because the way it's supposed to work, Jim, is Border Patrol catches you.
Mm.
If you are not from a contiguous country like Mexico or Canada, then we have to hold you for your removal proceedings so you can see a judge. You're supposed to go into immigration detention to have your initial hearing. That's ICE ERO, enforcement removal operations. But their funding and their capacity has been cut in half, and we've had so many people come in that there is no room to hold people. So if they don't have a criminal warrant or a immigration history that shows that they've been deported multiple times, they are going to be released because there has no place to hold them. And that has been kind of the breaking point over the last 4 to 6 years, is we don't have enough space and people keep coming, and instead of putting them on a plane immediately and deporting them back, they're getting a hearing, they're claiming asylum so they can get multiple bites at the apple, and then we're having to release them. It was more of the exception than the norm back in the day when I started early on, that someone would be released and let go. It was, they were put in an immigration camp. They would have their initial hearing with a judge, and the judge would determine if they're going to get relief or they're going to be ordered removed. And usually they were gone within a month. And we didn't have that capacity issue. Majority of people were just from Mexico and Central America. Now it's a worldwide problem. We've 170 different countries last year were apprehended coming into the southwest border. I mean, so we can't just send them on the next plane over to Asia or to Europe. So it becomes a capacity issue. And that comes back to directly out of Washington, D.C., the White House Domestic Policy Council office directing how they're going to manage immigration. And and that's why, again, you can come over here illegally if you are not a criminal with a history or or a known terrorist organization. The likelihood of you being released is over 90% that you'll be released within 2 or 3 days, because they won't have room to hold you, and you would not be considered a priority because you wouldn't be a national security or public safety threat at the time of arrest. And that is what drives Border Patrol agents crazy. That's what tanks the morale. That's
Mm.
what leads to not feeling of value or worth when you come to work.
Mm.
You mentioned it in the opening before I came on about the increase in suicides. I mean, this is what plays into law enforcement's head when they don't feel like they have a purpose, because the powers that be have directed them to do other than truly enforce the law. So there's not one single person that says release them. It's actually the directive coming down from policy out of the White House. So I guess you could say, the Office of the President or the Domestic Policy Council directing through the Secretary of Homeland Security. But yeah, there's people that actually sign off on it because that's how the process works. But the direction is coming from the top down. That make a little bit of sense.
Oh no, no, it
I mean,
makes it,
you
it
don't have to
does.
agree with it, hopefully I can explain
No,
it a
no,
little
it
bit.
makes sense. But we all want names. That's the
Yeah.
issue.
Well,
We
yeah.
want
So Joe Biden, Kamala Harris,
names.
whoever is the director, it used to be Susan Rice was the former director of domestic policy. She's not there. I forget who replaced her.
So
And
who is
then
it now?
Alejandro,
Who's it
I
now?
don't know who the domestic policy council director is now. It was Rice, and then she left a few months back. But Marcus is still the secretary. He's the cabinet secretary. He's the one that pulls the strings on anything that's to do with DHS, and that's border security. So he could reroute funds to increase capacity. He could shut down asylum loopholes. He could implement the policies that we had in place. Look, he's on the record. There's a video floating around social media where he is talking and says they have ended so many of Trump's policies and orders. It's too many to list. Yet here we are with all the problems. And again, Trump, his policies, I always said they were clunky but effective. They worked in controlling the border and making us less vulnerable at the border. They were very difficult to start because there was a lot of people that would hear the order, hey, we're going to do this, and they would start trying to implement it, and it hadn't gone through all the formal process. So we did a lot of start stop to
Mm,
get things done.
mm,
So again, clunky but highly effective. But this administration was doing victory laps on reversing so much of it, and now look at them. They're in crisis mode, finally admitting it's a crisis. Hopefully, it's the fourth quarter, and they're trying to do a Hail Mary with some of the things they're implementing right now. But it's made us all vulnerable. It's made the country vulnerable, and again leads to some of the things we've already talked about. You've got people from over 170 different countries that have come over here. I mean, that kind of leads to, some of concerns that we have is what's going to happen. What's the future of this country going to look like down the road? Not from a color or skin, a language they speak, but from an ideals or where we're going.
right.
What's going to be acceptable and what's not. Some of the things we see that are happening daily were anomalies. It may make a headline once a year. Now it's every day
Mm.
protests and riots and craziness. I mean, it's demands by migrants in Denver saying, you will give us the following. Uh, you were just entered illegally 3 days ago. How are you demanding from a government what you're going to do? Again, like you mentioned, try that in France or Germany next time you go overseas.
Not gonna happen.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
when all right, let me ask you this. Where do you think this is going? Like when does this end? Does it end? And how does it
So,
end? How does it end?
yeah, great
Like
questions.
we know what we can. I know I got to get a new car, but what
Yeah.
really is? If I pulled you aside and said, I need you to come up with a tactical defense for this so we can stop this right here, right? And before I even ask that, what's the most popular? Where do they come from the most? You say
Oh,
170 countries.
yeah.
What's the top three countries that are flooding the gates?
So Venezuela is one of them. Colombia was one of them. Central America countries are starting to tick up again. China is another one. We've had 24,000 Chinese nationals just in the first 6 months of this fiscal year. Over
Wow.
24,000. Yeah, yeah. So 450 were apprehended in 2022, I believe, and then it went up to 24,000 last year, and we've exceeded 24,000 so far this year. So
Chinese,
that's
China.
yes, yes, yes. Yeah. So talk about again one of the things we've talked about.
And that's just what you apprehended.
Yeah, yeah,
That's just
yeah.
what
So
you
there's
caught.
there's still a whole bunch of people we don't know. I think I actually have some of the numbers you're looking for. Let's see if I can find that real quick. But
Shh.
the
Mm.
yeah, that's a big anomaly, right? Going from single digits, like I literally went probably 5, 6, 7, 8 years of my career, never caught a Chinese national entering the country illegally, and then now I think last year was over 24,000, but the year before it was 450 or something, very little like that, and then to jump up, it's unbelievable the numbers, how they've come in. I'm trying to see if I have the latest and greatest, but there's a you can get onto the Customs and Border Protection CBP. That's like Charlie Bravo Papa
Yeah.
.gov, and you can
Yeah.
navigate through that, and people can go in there and look under news releases and then statistics, and it will show you all the data, the things that I'm talking about.
Mm. Make sure you
Um,
put that up,
you know,
Mike. Mike.
yeah, it's
Wow.
it's where they can go and I just don't have the
That's
ready
okay.
information,
That's okay. That's
but
okay.
I do know that the big concern, and it's really happening 200 miles from me. I live in Tucson now, but in Jacumba, California, and San Diego, California, is where they've surpassed. They're the busiest sector in the nation right now. Everything's migrated from Texas into West Texas, into Arizona. Tucson sector right here in my backyard is I think number one overall in apprehensions, but just got surpassed for the monthly apprehensions in San Diego, but also leads in the gotaways. And those, just for you and the audience, that's my biggest concern, because if the people we catch, at least we have an opportunity to control that. Even if I don't like how they're controlling it, they're letting them go.
Yeah.
But when every criminal category, and you can find that on that website, in every criminal category that we consider a criminal alien under this administration has doubled or quadrupled since the previous 4 years under President Trump. So if we're catching 20 people this year with homicide records, statistically, what are we missing in that 1.8 million gotaways? Because why on earth, under the way things have unfolded on this administration, would you avoid the Border Patrol unless you have a criminal record? You have, you're probably from Mexico and you'll get sent right back, or you have nefarious plans. You're bringing in fentanyl, you're bringing in guns, you don't need to bring in guns. We've got plenty of guns around here, but you're doing something wrong, because otherwise, if you are just trying to get a better life, just turn yourself in one of these, hundreds of gaps that are along the border, and Border Patrol will get to you, and you'll be likelihood of being processed and released is very, very high. So when people are avoiding us and they're evading us, that's a problem. And gotaways are recorded every day, and they're reported under a Government Reporting Accountability Act called the GEPRA. I don't know exactly what it stands for, but it's GPRA. And that is on record, and that is somebody that we have detected. Either we saw them, we saw their footprints, or we had them on video camera, and we never resolved that individual or that group. We didn't catch them. They didn't go back to Mexico. They got away. That's over 1.8 million just in the last 3.5 years. And we also know there's a percentage of unknown. Like, we never got to an area of the border to know what even happened. So that's a concern, and that's what should be a concern for everybody, because even the ones we're letting go have committed some heinous crimes. What are the ones that we don't even know about?
Check out the Breuniverse every Saturday, 9 a.m. Eastern, 6 a.m. Pacific. If you can't wait till then, sign up for Patreon and get it 2 days early, along with other exclusive content.